Good evening and welcome. I'm Bernie and I'm the founder of pH Perfect. I remember about 7 years ago I thought water was water. I'm going to talk to you about the memory of water, the energy of water, structure of water and the alkalinity of water. First one's the memory of water. Everything water runs through or past that picks up the memory. And now just a couple of tips on the memory of water. Water has an energy field of around 1,000 feet. So that's the memory of water. The next one is the energy of water. This is where it starts getting exciting. Now water gets structured in nature. If you can see on that sign over there we have a little mountain stream. That's where nature structures and energises water. It's the vortexing around the rocks that brings water to life. And with the energy of water, that's very important for hydration. When water is forced through a pipe under pressure, after about 100 metres or so, the molecules lose their energy and they cluster together. So all town water is, another word for it is called dead water or highly clustered water. And the problem is when you drink this type of water, your blood cell only absorbs 6 micron size and the clusters are too large for your body to use. So it's estimated about 80% of this type of water goes straight through people and they don't realise they're dehydrated all the time. This is another nice fact about the human body. The flow of water inside your body over 24 hours is equal to 10,000 litres. That's like a little swimming pool. And when you drink energised water, it's every cell in your body in 26 minutes. Now, that's important for hydration. I refer to a scientist called Peter Agri. He won a Nobel Prize in 2003 for discovering how water got into a cell. Prior to his discovery, scientists used to think water passed through the cell membrane in a process called osmosis. And he discovered a small channel and he called it the aquaporin channel. And it's so small, it takes 1 molecule of water at a time. So it's single file. So town water is referred to as dead water. So if you've got town water or clustered water in your body has to use a lot of energy to get the water molecule to a point where it'll hydrate you. Whereas energised water is straight to your cell. And that's why athletes love our water. So that's the hydration, the benefit of having energised water. So now we move on to the structure of water, and that's where it even gets more exciting. Scientists have been studying water now for about 100 years or so and they still can't work out how structured water does what it does. One of the things they have found out recently, we all know rain's H2O. When water is structured in nature, it forms a molecule H3O2. So that's pretty out there in my book. And they say structured water forms like a cube shape, and that's where they're estimating that it traps all the toxins and heavy metals. It energetically neutralises toxins and heavy metals. So the area that its structured water takes us to is not the science and the chemistry we know now, it's quantum physics. And that's about frequency and energy. And that's how scientists are estimating that it neutralises toxins and heavy metals. It's the frequency and the energy of the water, structured water that does this. So that's the structure of water. The last one is the alkalinity of water. Now, as most people might know, the pH range runs from 0 to 14. 7's called neutral, below 7's acidic, and above 7 is alkaline. Any liquid you drink below 7 creates oxidation in your body. It's all about balance within the body. If you remember from school, an atom in the main is made up of a nucleus, protons and electrons. And the electrons supply all the energy on Earth. But there's always a byproduct. For example, you light a fire, the fire's the energy, the smoke is the byproduct. And the molecules rising in the smoke have been depleted of electrons. And the same thing is happening within your body, not just your muscles, but every cell in your body is burning energy every second you're alive. And what's left behind, the trade-off, is called an oxidated molecule. And when the body hasn't got the nutrients to neutralise that, the build-up is called acidic tissue waste, and most people have heard of acidic tissue waste. There's quite a few stories you read in magazines today about becoming, in the Western world, we're too acidic. because the body hasn't got the nutrients to neutralise your oxidated molecules. So that build-up is also called oxidative stress, and that leads to free radical accumulation, and most people would have heard of a free radical. A free radical has no electrons in the outer shell, it only has protons. And it has a very, very erratic and dangerous path, causes a lot of damage throughout your body. And the scientist Rick Du Bois states that when free radicals are in your bloodstream, they're very erratic path and they crash into the walls of the veins and arteries, and the damage is like a grenade going off. Of course, the body heals and leaves behind scar tissue, and over time that's referred to as hardening of the arteries. When free radicals hit the good fatty acids in the bloodstream, they explode into a sticky substance and cling to the walls of the veins and arteries and start clogging up the works, and over time that's where you get the need for bypass surgery. So oxidated stress leads to free radical accumulation, leads to lipid peroxidation, and folks, that's the downhill slide to every ailment known to man, including most forms of cancer. And Rick Du Bois says, he states that when everyone has in their DNA a gene called OCMIC, and when an oxidised lipid hits a suppressor or the activator of that gene, that starts a forbidden clone of cells called cancer. So how do we avoid all this? Like all the ailments you'll see on the other side over there, like diabetes, arthritis, gout, irritable bowel syndrome, psoriasis, so on. And this downhill slide doesn't happen overnight. For some people it can be 10 years, some 20, some 30. But it's the downhill slide. So let's back the truck right back up to where we're burning energy and leaving behind oxidative molecules. What does the body need to neutralise that? And as the name implies, it's an antioxidant or a vitamin. And if you don't know the difference between the two, there isn't any. The only reason the antioxidant was named a vitamin is the scientists discovered it had a role with a specific disease like vitamin C for colds. And where we get our antioxidants from, of course, are fruit, veggies and nuts and water. Now, the antioxidants in fruit, veggies and nuts have other roles within the body. For example, scientists don't know what their roles are because there's so many, like a slice of tomato is over 10,000 different types of antioxidants. So you should have a whole food, not just your single vitamins. As I say, in food, antioxidants have other roles within the body, like an antioxidant from spinach called lutein zeaxanthin is very good for macular degeneration and so on. So, but they all have one thing in common. They have free electrons or spare electrons in the outer shell. They're in the alkaline range. Now, how it works, pH stands for potential hydrogen, and it's the measure of negative ions or electrons in the hydrogen molecule. So when we raise the pH of water, that actually gives the hydrogen molecule spare electrons. And like I said, you drink this bottle of water, it's every cell in your body in 26 minutes. And if you've got an oxidated molecule there, or a free radical, it draws across the free electrons like a magnet. Now it's neutralised, the body can deal with it. So the first thing that happens when you start drinking this full time, it'll detox every cell in your body. Not just your kidney or your livers. Every cell in your body, it'll clear out your acidic tissue waste, all the oxidated molecules. And depending on your inner health, that can take a day to a week or two. And you'll know when it's finished because you get a beautiful increase in energy, you find your sleeping improves, your skin improves, and so that's the bottom line in how antioxidants work, and that's, you've got a choice now. To get enough antioxidants for yourself each day, you can have a truckload of carrots or a big bottle of water. And the best reference for this water comes from Dr. Quander. Over 100 years ago, he spent the last 40 years of his life travelling to these 5 remote areas on Earth. And if you remember back then, people were still riding horses. So it was sometimes it was a 4 months trek to get to these places. And he went to the Hunza Mountains north of Pakistan, place in Peru, place in Ecuador, the county of Georgia in Russia, and a place in Mongolia. And back then they were regarded as the mystical fountains of youth, because locals in the area could live to 130 and they had good quality life, good health, hardly any diseases throughout the communities. And it intrigued him, so he studied all their fresh food supplies And in the end, after 40 years, he came to the conclusion that wasn't the answer, because there were people in the Western world purely eating exactly the same types of food, and yet they were dying before their time. And Patrick Flanagan eventually solved the riddle. Each area had energised, structured alkaline water. And that's what you got here. So what he proved for us, Dr. Quander, is all the good food on earth will never make up for the bad water you drink. This one's called a home edge. All our products are called an edge. We give you the edge with your water. And this little fella here, we've copied nature. And water is energised and structured. We set it up to vortex the water left and right at the same time and crash on itself all the way through, just like the rocks in a river. And that goes between your water meter and your house on the main inlet water pipe. And when the water runs through, it energises the water, clears the water memory, structures the water, and energetically neutralises all toxins and heavy metals. So it's like a mountain stream. It's like the water in your bottle. It's like showering under a waterfall. It's just beautiful, beautiful water. This does everything to the water except makes it alkaline. So the second part of the system, this is a little alkaline machine. It doesn't need any electricity. It'll naturally raise the pH for you. It's got different layers of metals and so on that naturally raise the pH for you. Now, our edges never need servicing. They last forever, and you can take it all from home to home. This fella here, if you go through 8 litres of drinking water a day, you only change that filter every 2 years. Not much can go wrong because there's no electric parts in there, electrical parts. The Water Institute of Japan, that was set up a long time ago, and I got a lot of information from them. They've done a lot of tests over the years, and with all the things that make us acidic today, like, for example, pollution, processed foods, soda drinks, alcohol, stress, that's more than our great-grandfathers had to deal with. So they recommend, and they've proven that the beneficial range for humans should be between 8.5 and 9.5 all the time. And that's what that machine pumps out. It'll start off at the top range and it'll settle down to about the middle of the range. But even when the filters had it, say you used 8 litres a day, in 2 years the filter started getting slow, it was clogging a bit, because there's a carbon filter in there and a carbon silver filter in there as well. It's still making the water alkaline. So they proved that. So it's a great little machine. Yeah. There's lots of ways you can alter water. We've done it totally naturally. And it never wears out. You take it from home to home. Yeah. No filters, no. Water will always try and improve itself. And when reverse osmosis strips everything out of the water, and if you drink that type of water all the time, it's called dead water. When you look at these photos, it's just, there's nothing. There's other live water and so on. You can see from these photographs the difference. And if you drink tank water all the time, because tank water is like virgin water, it hasn't been brought to life yet, hasn't been structured. And reverse osmosis, water can drag a lot of valuable minerals out of your body if you drink it all the time, because it'll always try and improve itself. So when water runs over rocks, it picks up the minerals and so on. That's why some waters you look at when you diagnose them or test them, they've got lots of nice minerals in them. That's from running over rocks and so on. Yeah. Because even spring water, they take it straight from underground into a bottle, and it may taste great. And when they do a test on it, it mightn't have anything contaminants in it, but it hasn't been brought to life. It still hasn't been vortexed like through a river. Because water copies, and it always wants to structure. It's like it's got an inbuilt plan that it's going to structure. And I regard structured water as God's gift or nature's gift, whatever your beliefs are, because what it does for your health is just amazing. And
my name's Alan Hadley. I'm a holistic medical practitioner in Brisbane, and I've been doing nutritional holistic medicine for about, nearly 40 years now. I've known about structured water for some time and about energised water, and it's certainly about alkalinised water. And we know in medicine that the body only really starts to heal properly when the body is alkaline. In between being well and being unwell is a process of increasing acidity. And in order for healing to take place, that acidity has to be reduced and the body has to actually become alkaline. It's got a whole lot of mechanisms for doing this. It's got a whole system specifically labelled and focused on the production of alkaline processes in the body. To such a degree that when you take lemon juice in water, is lemon alkaline or acid? It's acidic, isn't it? Citric acid. But when you put it in the body converts it to an alkali. And it does this with a whole lot of citrus juices as well. It's a wonderful process. And the other thing that I've learned along the way is that the only stream that flows is a stream of wellness. We are teleologically oriented to be well. That's the way we're created. We're created to enjoy life. Smiles on face, fun in our lives, and good food and good water in our bodies. Now this wellness orientation applies throughout nature, and it doesn't miss water. That's why when water is produced out of the sky onto rocks up high in the mountains and it flows down and gathers all this beautiful energy, it enlivens the earth with that. Now we think that if we drink enough water, we're going to get hydrated. I do a particular test on lots of clients called a cellular health analysis. It actually looks at the health of our cells. And we can find in that how much is fat, how much is muscle, and how much is water in the body. And when we come down to the water component, it separates the water into the water inside the cells and the water between each cell. That is the extracellular water. And we find that some people, or many people, have a lot of water on board. They have a fluid excess, and yet their cells are dehydrated. Now, how can that be? It can be because the membranes of the cells are very selective and they won't let through anything that's of a significant size. And water is not, it just doesn't happen molecule by molecule, but it clusters together. And in large clusters, when it's not energized, it clusters in these large clumps. And the large clumps can't get into the cells. They stay in the environment outside the cell. So the cell can only allow through that which is small, in small clusters. And some of the water that we have has small clusters. But about 18% only can get into the cells. Now that becomes a significant problem when we're trying to work a healing process and get the cells healthy and well. And this particular water, I'm sure, can do that to the cells. I've had the experience of getting a scientist on board to do some live cell analyses of some patients. So you see the difference between that and 3 or 4 slides on. Now, there's a number of other features that I won't go into here, but mainly just let's just look at the red blood cells. The scientist who did this was astounded. He said, what on earth's going on? He has never seen anything like this in his life before. And he's been looking at red blood cells under the microscope day in and day out for about 15 years and has never seen anything like this. And I haven't either. So I'm really, really impressed with it. And I think it's some really solid evidence that there is something happening in those cells as a result of the water, because that's the only change. You know, an experimental process is where you have everything stable and change one thing and then observe the result. And that's tantamount evidence of the value and the validity of this process. So there are 3 ways that we need to look at to validate a new product or a new process. The first way is to get scientific information, data, facts, and look at the results of that. The second way is to respond on the testimony of other people, what has happened for other people. And there's a list of conditions there on that board of people that have experienced changes in their health as a result of taking this water. And the third way, of course, is your own private experience. Try it, test it, see how it works in your life. And the water, once it gets into the body, processes in the body. It doesn't necessarily flush over the bacteria just as it is. But the energisation of the water is the magical part of it. That's something that stays there in the water, transfers into the cells of the body and enlivens the cells of the body.